I can't remember a point in time where I felt like we were going over and above to support you. And I guess that's a moment for me where I realised maybe we were on the right path here, because you were just a normal person going through normal things in your life that many other men and women go through. And that's having children or going through separation, and we just supported you like any other individual should be supported. And so it's kind of nice to hear that you feel that you were so supported, when we feel that as an organisation and me personally, we were just doing the right thing.
Welcome to Voices of Gender Equity, the podcast where we deep dive into real and raw stories of impact. I'm your host, Ash McGrath, and each episode I'm aiming to inspire and influence you, our listeners, into action by bringing you authentic conversations, success stories and practical advice. Join us as we amplify the voices of individuals from all walks of life, activists, scholars, CEOs and everyday champions, sharing their journeys, insights and strategies for driving meaningful change. So, whether you're a seasoned advocate or just beginning to explore this fascinating topic, Voices of Gender Equity is your space to listen, learn and engage. Welcome to the conversation. Welcome to Voices of Gender Equity, real and raw stories of impact. So, whether you're a seasoned advocate or just beginning to explore this fascinating topic, Voices of Gender Equity is your space to listen, learn and engage. Joining us on today's episode is Gilliam, Executive General Manager of PERSOLKELLY, the leading workforce solutions provider in APAC. We know your name and we know where you work, and I've had the very great pleasure of knowing you for a long time, and I'm sure we'll get chatting a bit about that. But for the benefit of our listeners, can you share a little bit more about who is Gilliam?
Yeah, so my name's Gilliam. I'm the Executive General Manager for PERSOLKELLY Australia. We're one of the largest recruitment companies across Asia Pacific. I've been with our organisation for 11 years now, and had the pleasure of working with you for 9 of those years, roughly. 10, 9
or 10.
And so, yeah, it's fantastic to be here, and it's such a great organisation that you've built over a period of time, Ash.
Thank you. But you've gone all corporate on me. I want to know, like, Gilliam, what do you do for fun, family,
Yeah, so I'm pretty straightforward sort of guy. So outside of work, my passion revolves around my family. So I've got 3 beautiful kids, Melody, Lennon and Florence, all in primary school still. Very focused on family. If it's not family, it's mates or both. Love spending time at the beach. Love my Aussie rules footy. I'm a big Sydney Swans supporter. We've got an allegiance with our organisation with the Dockers, and so love getting involved with the Fremantle Dockers. A good friend of mine used to play for North Melbourne and now works at the club, and always had a soft spot for North Melbourne. Now a Tassie team coming in, and I'm originally from Tasmania, but lifelong Swan supporter. So yeah, so it's family, mates, music, beach, beers, good times with friends, holidays. Yeah, and I love living in Western Australia, love the coastal lifestyle, love the weather, and yeah, I guess I call Western Australia home now, even though I'm from Tassie and have lived in Melbourne, Sydney, and also started my recruitment career in the UK. So yeah, so I reckon that sums me up, Ash.
I reckon that's the juicy stuff. That's what we wanted. Thank you for that. And so, obviously I had the play. Well, you inherited me. Let's be honest. Yeah. You did inherit me. Whenever you joined, what was Kelly Services, but I just adored having you as my leader, and have enjoyed continuing to be able to work together and spend time together and now drive change together.
Absolutely.
Through your involvement with CEOs for Gender Equity. So, but I want to ask, because you kind of you inherited me, and you've kind of inherited this membership as well. But naturally, I've just found you to be always, so supportive of me and kind of people regardless of gender, to be honest. But I want to ask this question, which I ask all our guests, which is, was there, a defining moment for you which ignited a particular passion for gender equity?
Well, it's a good question. I'm not sure there was a defining moment. I think there's been a series of moments, and those moments have come as I've got more experienced and experienced more things and more relationships and grown my career probably. There are a couple of things that come to mind with that question. Firstly, you mentioned that I inherited this partnership with CEOs for Gender Equity. And I guess I don't look at it as in I inherited, I probably just see it as I'm a continuation of a legacy. I believe our former managing director, Chris Sutherland, was quite influential in the CEOs for Gender Equity.
A founding member.
A founding
actually.
member,
Yep.
yeah. He was our former managing director of Program, and I didn't get the opportunity to work with Chris. We crossed over at the time, and then Nick Fairbank, who was my CEO at the time, I guess continued on that legacy and joined the CEOs for Gender Equity. And then, definitely a defining moment was when the executive officer position became available, and you were working with us, and clearly one of our most valued team members in all of Australia, really, and my longest serving team member. And I remember at the time, Nick come and spoke to me and said, listen, I know this might be left of field, and I know you might not like what I'm about to say, but there's a position that's come up as an executive officer with CEOs for Gender Equity, and I think Ashley might be a suitable candidate. But I wanted to talk to you about that first as her manager and get your thoughts. And my initial thought was, to be really honest, it was it was twofold. So, gee, if I approach Ashley for this role, I'm going to lose one of my top performing team members, someone who we love in the organisation. At the same time, I would be the worst bloke on earth if I didn't talk to you about that opportunity and let you follow your passion and a role that I actually thought you would do great things with. And the reason I wanted to share that is, for me, your appointment is probably the most defining moment, because it helped with the fact that I knew you, but it obviously gave me a more vested interest in gender equity and this organisation. And so, yeah, but to answer the question, I think it's a series of things over the journey from, all the people I've worked with, the influence it's had, the people that I've managed, and yeah, those few things come to mind.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm so grateful that you weren't selfish at that point.
I thought about it.
And I share that story because I'll just never forget that day. I will never forget that experience. So, because you and I were actually having a meeting at your desk, and Nick came up and said, can I have a word with you? And part of me felt like, that's a bit rude, mate. Like, we're having a meeting here. But then he said, and then we're going to come back and speak to you.
Yeah.
And so he pulled you away, and then you had a chat, and then you shared with me what he said. And that changed my life.
Yeah.
So, like, seriously, like I can close my eyes and take myself back into that, like an outer body experience to that moment. Like, that was just magic, and I'll never forget that. Yeah. So thank you.
It's nice to hear, Ash. I think one of my strongest memories was our last management meeting, and you're someone who doesn't show lots of emotion either way. Never show too much when you're upset, never show too much when you're over the moon, and you're quite balanced, and you're quite emotional when you sort of said your farewell.
I was bawling.
And that surprised me. And I think it was that time I thought, maybe we're making the wrong move here. She should be staying with us. But we actually feel like you're still part of our
100%.
organisation. I know as an organisation, we helped set up the CEOs for Gender Equity until you started to grow it.
Yes.
And so, we're really proud of what you've achieved, and we're really proud to be a part of it as an organisation. And personally, I'm very happy to be a CEO for Gender Equity.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate the badge.
Got the badge on, yeah,
Love
100%.
Today.
Yeah.
Have to be a member to get one of these. So just
exclusive
saying.
club.
Yep. Now, gender equity can be quite a subjective thing. So I also like to ask all our guests this question, which is, how do you define, gender equity, and why do you think it's important in today's society?
Yeah, well, I've learned about this more so just over the last few months. I used to think gender equity was about treating every human equally, as simple as that, regardless of gender. And what I've realised is that's gender equality. And so gender equity is the journey to achieve equality. And that's, I think that's just important to pause on and think about, because most people kind of think gender equity, gender equality, it's the same thing. And so I think that's how I'd define it. I don't know if I'm right with that, but
Bang on.
Gender equality is, I think, the nirvana, and just logical, really. And so gender equity is about the journey that you've started, and a lot of organisations have started, and I think made significant inroads in over the last decade or more. I know from when my career started to now, there's been huge improvement, but still a long way to go. And so, yeah, that's probably how I'd define it. And correct me if I'm wrong, though. Yeah.
No, you're bang on, and yeah, if there's one key takeaway that I wish like every person in the world knew, it's that difference between equality and equity. So, inequity in a nutshell is equity of anything, gender or other aspects, is giving people what they need. So, kind of considering the different starting points of different people. Like as a very relevant example, when the executive officer position became available, I knew about the position. I knew my predecessor. I had a coffee with her, and I thought in my head, and like, me, like I'm not shy or lacking confidence, right? But I thought that's the dream. But I couldn't. I'm not at a stage where I can go and speak to a room of CEOs. I'll finish my PhD, then I'll have that credibility, and then so this was the little voices going on inside my head. So as a broad generalization, women are wired to kind of undersell ourselves, even me, like loudmouth, whereas so that was my starting point. And Nick, obviously, with his awareness, being on the board of CGE, would have known that and known me and knew that I needed that sponsorship. So I wouldn't have. I knew about the job. I met the flipping, the person leaving, asked her, "Where are you going?" Didn't even ask the question. Didn't even outside float the idea. Mad, isn't it?
Whereas you're saying a bloke would have said, "Hey, I'm going to go for that
naturally,
because I'm the man for the job, and I don't have quite the qualifications, but I can speak to all the CEOs and make change."
As a broad generalisation.
Yeah.
Women undersell and men oversell.
Yeah.
And I think we could both probably learn a wee bit from each other,
Yeah.
So look, as I said, I've got first-hand experience of, the support and how you supported my, equity journey and, going through separation and becoming a mother and working full time and working from home, and it just never felt anything but support from you on that. And I was interviewing, I can't remember who, another one of our guests, and I was saying about it's you first, then family, then work, and how you were always so loud and proud with that, and how like that set the tone for everyone else. But I want to ask, you do so much at PERSOLKELLY. Is there a certain on the gender equity journey, or with that gender equity lens, is there a certain initiative or program which you've rolled out which you're particularly proud of?
Yeah. So, firstly, when you talk about your journey with us and how we supported you, I can't remember a point in time where I felt like we were going over and above to support you. And I guess that's a moment for me where I realised maybe we were on the right path here, because you were just a normal person going through normal things in your life that many other men and women go through. and that's having children or going through separation, and we just supported you like any other individual should be supported. And so it's kind of nice to hear that you feel that you were so supported, when we feel that as an organisation, and me personally, we were just doing the right thing for you, for the business, and it's as simple as that, really. And so I'm not sure what I'm trying to say with that, other than that's how it should be. And we don't get it right all the time, of course, and sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And if people maybe aren't open with us and don't communicate, it makes it really hard. And I think one of the things that you did really well is you communicated, and the relationship was strong, and so it makes it quite easy and quite natural. It's probably at times where you don't have the communication with your team or the relationship, and then things can go a bit pear-shaped. So I think communication probably is a big starting point. And now I've forgotten your question.
First of all, just credit where credit's due, because then you know, it wasn't even like an overt or conscious thing for you, which says a lot about, you know, you as a leader. And what was Kelly Services, now PERSOLKELLY as a company, that it is. But believe you me, that is not the case in many other companies and for many other leaders, in that natural support which I felt from you. So just sit with that for a minute and just take that, because it was so, to have that unwavering support for me during those times just meant the world.
Yeah, well, I think you know, when I mentioned before, it's the sum of all parts, and so the experiences that I've had over a long journey, I think, help with that. And so if I think back to when I was a young manager in my early 20s, maybe that's not natural because I haven't had the experiences either personally or through my career and so on. So I think for young managers, maybe that's really hard to kind of get your head around when you're starting out and you don't have that level of experience, and you've got pressures on performance of the business and other things, and you may be less considerate and less empathetic. So I think those experiences sort of help that. And then clearly the organisation you work for, or the mentors you've had over the past. So for me, I mentioned Nick Fairbank before. He was our former CEO at the time. And I just remember there's lots of great things about Nick as a leader, one of the best leaders I've ever worked for. And he just had a underlying sort of value of doing the right thing. It's really simple, but just do the right thing. And I remember there were certain times where there were maybe conflicting situations and decisions that needed to be made, and Nick would always just go the ethical right thing. And so great influence. And then I worked for two amazing female CEOs, and so huge influences on my career. And but I've never sort of, I'm saying female CEOs only because they're female, but it's never bothered me what gender anyone is, but maybe that's helped me along the journey. And then back to your question around an initiative we're really proud of. As an organisation, we started an initiative called Open Door. It's not a policy, it's an initiative, and it's across our whole organisation, where any individual can report any sense of unfairness or uneasiness or harassment or issues through a system we've got, and they can report that anonymously, and it gets treated with the utmost urgency and professionalism. And I think what we've seen by that is just creating that open door, allowing people to voice their concerns, is part of a really inclusive culture. And so it's something that I think as an organisation we're really, really proud of. And I think that's starting to expand, and we're talking to some of our customers about Open Door and how we can maybe support their organisations as partners, or the thousands of people we employ that work on host sites as a recruitment company, making sure they've got that opportunity to voice any concerns, anything to do with inequality or those types of things. So
amazing. And part of it involves peer support or peer contacts, isn't it?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And then our executive team a couple of months ago, we had a conference with a wider management team. And it was on the first evening of the conference. There was myself and a couple of our other executives, and we got talking about a really important topic, and that's violence against women. And we made a commitment to each other that evening that we would make a stand as an organisation around gender-based violence. And it's something I'm also really proud of. It's just at the commencement of that. We've created a video for our whole organisation, made a statement and a stand, and we've created a committee to really take that forward now and to aim to make meaningful change. We know we can't change the world, but we know we can make a step forward. And so it's an initiative I'm a part of, and now it makes me really proud to come to work when I've got fellow executives that want to make a difference. Similar to some other organisations have done. I think the AFL has done a great job as a starting point of shining a light on violence against women, and we think as a large employer, we really represent society, and these types of challenges happen within our workforce, and so I think we can make change, and I just hope that eventually, if companies like us set the right example, then others may follow, and like we're following others as well that we see doing the right thing.
I'm really excited about this. Any timelines for when it's going to be released, or?
No, so initially internally focused. Right. So we've got 3 stakeholders really. So we've got our internal employees, our staff members, and then we've got the thousands of people we employ and on hire to different companies, number 2. And then we've got our customers and our partners. And so I think eventually we'll have an approach that touches all 3 of those priorities. And then, maybe there's some stuff externally that would follow later, but we need to get it right internally first.
Good.
And definitely shine a light on a really important topic or a really important issue. And before, when you talked about going for this role and being afraid, or if lacking confidence, or doubting yourself, actually brings me back to gender equity. It brings me back to violence against women. I think it takes a lot of courage to even speak. And so even coming here today, to be honest with you, Ash, and I do town halls with our team with more than 100 people, and I talk about violence against women, I talk about gender equity, and I'm always fearful that I'm going to stuff something up and say the wrong thing. And as you know, I'm quite confident and I'm happy to speak on any topic, but if I'm feeling that, you imagine how many other people are feeling that, and it's something I've had to overcome, because I don't want to touch on topics where I'm nervous that I'm going to say the wrong thing or get into a debate and get into an argument just because I'm, trying but stuffing it up. And so I think having the courage with what you've done, but in any business or sporting club or community, is really quite powerful if you can get it right. And hopefully you can create an environment where people are accepting if you stuff things up, and you're not ridiculed for having a go. You maybe quietly told that, hey, next time think about the language you've used or whatever it might be. So, but I constantly fear stuffing it up. So I feel like I come in today and what am I going to mess up on this podcast? But I prefer to be having a crack than sitting back and saying nothing.
Well, you don't even have your notes. You forgot your notes, for goodness sake. You don't even need your notes, right? So, but thank you for sharing that. And from many a conversation with our existing members and a lot of prospective members for CGA, I hear the exact same thing. Ash, I'm so passionate about this, but I'm scared of being on the front page of the paper for saying something wrong. And I feel like, we've moved past that a bit. I'm sure if something, something major happened, it might get there. But I feel like the, genuine intent for change is there, and just people are sometimes a wee bit clunky with articulating that, and that's something which we obviously try and support with at CGA. But I love that even despite like how uncomfortable it might seem or feel, you're kind of thinking of the greater good here and just doing it anyway.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I think that's what we all need to do. And I also love, you touched on this big initiative around violence against women, and at CGE, like obviously you're all CEOs and heads of state to be a member, and while what I love about this work is and the potential influence that you have as CEOs and heads of state is, yes, these initiatives are start or maybe are shared or a workplace driven initiative. Every one of your employees is a partner, a friend, a mother, a father, a sister, and so using the platform of the workplace to inspire and support and influence positive change for these people, and then they take that back to to their families and their spheres of influence. And it's like, imagine this ripple effect that has. Like, it's really, really magic.
Yeah, the ripple effect.
The
I love it.
ripple effect.
You organised through two of your partners the Experience Lab, and I forget the other.
Dart Group.
Dart Group, yeah. A wonderful experience for me personally with a session around violence against women and the actors acting out violence against women in the workforce, and what that might look like with a perpetrator or a victim. And for me, that's had a huge impact, and I'd like to think a ripple effect in some way, shape or form. Maybe the ripple's not big enough yet, but I think the ripple effect, I love it. I think that's kind of what it's all about. If you can, I guess you can have a ripple effect that's negative, but if you can focus on positive ripples, I think that's awesome.
100%. And this is one of the reasons behind this podcast is to try and we've got channels which reach like a lot of corporate side of things, but with this we want to try and inspire and influence everyone in our community. And so I'm sure lots of the pearls of wisdom which you've shared already will do that. And then, those people, oh, hey, I listened to this awesome podcast and heard this, so it's just really exciting to think. And, with my PhD research, actually a lot of the solutions which are being applied by these mining companies trying to improve the inclusion and diversity of women, actually the majority of them are all of business focused. Used to be, leaders have to, and that's still true. But Henry and I just had a conversation in the podcast we recorded that kind of share this example. Like, say if you've got 1,000 people, right? And 100 people are leaders and the other 900 are employees of various departments. Okay, yep, this 100 have to, lead loudly and proudly and be active. But if you just stop there, you're missing out on these 900 captive audience with their own little spheres of influence.
Yeah.
So imagine if we can inspire and educate and engage those people as well as these people, and how that will drive the within the company and then beyond the company.
Well, I think it forms part of a culture.
Yeah.
And it's a culture ripple effect, really.
Yeah.
And as you know, I don't really believe in hierarchy when it comes to culture. And so you've got, if you scrap the org chart when it comes to culture, culture's in the middle, and those 900 people or whatever you mentioned are wrapped around it. And so if you can create an environment where everyone partly owns or equally owns the culture, I think that's a strong step forward when it comes to any initiative, and especially gender equity initiatives. So I think, and then just on that, one of the lessons that I've learned through the experience of working with CEOs for gender equity is the fact that my part of the business I run does have an issue with gender equity when I didn't think we did. So we are around about nearly 70% female, just over 30% male in our business at PERSOLKELLY across all of Australia. And so I was like, oh, I'm sweet. I don't have to worry about gender equity within my business because we've got it nailed. We're 70% female just about. And our leadership team's 50-50. And I think you rightly pointed out, but hey, that's not gender equality,
Yeah, it's
right?
not balanced.
Not balanced. And so, so we have a very different challenge to, say, a lot of the mining companies, but still a challenge, and it's And I think it's very important to realise that gender equity is not just about females. I think that's a bit of a misconception.
Agreed.
Until you actually, lean into it and learn a bit more. But I probably initially thought gender equity was more about females. And I've quickly come to realise that it's not, because I was even thinking earlier on the way here, driving here actually, that females have children, but so do males. Females need to look after children, but so do males.
That's right.
Gender's so irrelevant now.
That's right. And that's one of the things which I'm very quick to point out, especially, whenever I have a meeting with someone who's maybe, inquiring about coming on board, is we're not a raging feminist movement.
No.
You know?
Well, another thing I always hear is you in the workplace, you always hear about working mums. No one ever says anything about working dad. Right? And so I kind of wonder why. I'm a working dad.
That's right.
3 kids.
Yeah.
I try and be flexible, and I'm lucky I work for an employer and in a role where I have flexibility to be able to attend school assemblies and do school drop-offs and coach my little boy in footy and be as involved as I can. And, I think that's where we have come a long way. And maybe a little bit of the remote working and the impacts of COVID have helped sort of accelerate that in some regard. People have realised how important that flexibility is, and but I think it's just it's a positive movement, and we just need to keep going.
Agreed. And you've touched on a real passion area of mine, which is men's engagement in parenting and caring responsibilities. And I feel like it has been all about supporting the working mums, and but not at the expense, of the dads, right? And one of my big kind of things is, we've moved away from this, maternity leave and paternity leave, but people still, use those references, which I always correct. And then we've kind of gone to, primary and secondary, but still the majority of primary carers are women and the majority of secondary carers are men. Yeah. But I don't like that, because, how do the men feel being referred to as a secondary carer? Well, you're a parent, you're not set, it shouldn't be. So, gold standard in parental leave is it's parental leave. There's no primary, there's no secondary. It's parental leave for everyone. And I think it's a big investment, but I think the companies which do that, like the stories I hear, are unreal.
Yeah.
In terms of this ripple effect, this broader societal movement which you're helping to drive through the workplace. And who wants to be called secondary anything? Yeah. It's not nice.
And I think as an organisation, if you can be a leader in this space, a bit of a pioneer, if you like, in some of these initiatives, then it just has so many benefits. I mean, a small benefit, or a large benefit actually, is you become an employer of choice.
Right.
You improve your brand, and in the war for talent, everyone should be looking for an edge and what else they can do, and what better way. And so many benefits, and again, we just got to keep going now.
And candidates are all over it these days.
All over it.
They are doing their research. Like, one of our members was deliberately trying to get more women in his executive team. And recruiting and doing interviews. So the CEO, I think you know him, and he said to me, Ash, I was getting interviewed from them. I've been on your website and I see you've got all male or mostly male in your executive team. So what's the story? And he was a bit taken back, but these people were doing their research. Yeah.
Well, I think interviews have changed as well, and so they should. And so interviews are two-way. If it's anything less than 50-50 in an interview, then there's an issue, right? And so interviews should always be two ways, and that's what definitely we would encourage with our customers, and take on, ask for feedback on part of their journey and applying and what you could do better. I think it's very important.
So, gender equity is not all rainbows and unicorns. And, so I want to just ask you in, conversations, whether it be in your family, with your friends, in the workplace, have you faced adversity in, any of the conversations that you've had? And if so, how have you overcome that?
Yeah. I can't think of any significant periods of adversity, which is probably not what you want to hear, but it's true. Like, I can't think of anything over the top really. There's probably been a couple of things where you might hear some hallway talk or some lunchroom talk, and the language that used is inappropriate, and I think as a CEO for gender equity and someone who's more equipped now, I'm really happy to call those things out in the right way. But
Nice.
I think previously maybe you would sort of just laugh it off, and especially if it's some blokey talk. And so I think they are like little pieces of adversity that I think a lot of businesses still need to overcome.
Yeah.
We had a couple of things with women going on parental leave, and a couple of examples. For example, where one of our mothers on parental leave in a senior management role had a credit card, work company corporate card cancelled, and access to her emails and all that sort of stuff cancelled. And she's like, hey, I haven't left the country, I'm still an employee, and you're cancelling my card and everything like that. And she wasn't suggesting it was going to be used while she was on parental leave, but just even the thought of being cut off from the business when they're still an employee, they're just on leave.
That's right.
And no one else that goes on any form of leave have their emails disconnected and their logins and credit cards or whatever else access cut. And so, really small thing, but we had a simple discussion as executive team and go, what are we doing? We didn't even think about it. And by the way, we're also getting feedback that we're not engaging with those who are on parental leave in any way, shape or form until they come back, or a month before they come back. And so we've made a change where we actually ask the person going on parental leave what access they want, what access they don't want, how much contact they'd like, how much they don't like. So we just, it's a really small change and quite an easy obstacle to probably overcome.
Love that.
And then the third thing that comes to mind, and this is probably more recently, where we've had those on parental leave, and let's just say it's 12 months parental leave, I know it could be more or less, but they're on parental leave, and so once they're on leave, they stop getting their bonuses, or it's like they're no longer an employee for that period. And so we've really challenged our thinking around those types of things. So, without going into names, we've had one of our team members just return from 12 months parental leave, and a month before she returned, she got an annual bonus based on the performance of the business during the year that she didn't physically work. She was on leave. And for me, that's a small thing, but it was kind of it's a breakthrough for us, where that person would have been treated as someone that didn't work for the business for that 12 months, and therefore they're not entitled for that bonus for that 12-month period. And so, little things like that. I think there are lots of obstacles that we're slowly overcoming. And still we haven't got it right all the time, but we're making steps forward.
And all the examples, I love that all the examples you've just given there are seemingly small things, right? But you imagine the impact of each one of those things and how that would make that person feel. And gender equity can seem like this big scary, overwhelming thing, but actually it's really a culmination of all of these small little shift changes in decision making or language. It's a culmination of all of those small things which really add up to that cultural, societal level change.
It is. It's the 1%ers, and there's lots of them. And so, I think that's kind of what I've been more focused on. It's easier to change 1% at a time as well than trying to change at 100% rate. And so I think we've just focused on the small things, asking for feedback, being open, having open levels of communication within our executive team and our senior leadership teams within the business. And yeah, they're just small things, but I think that's sort of starting to accumulate a little bit more now. And again, we haven't got it right. And one of the great things about the CEOs for gender equity that I've experienced is the connections that you make and the stories that you hear through your peer group that are running different sized organisations. And so, already I've been able to bring back to our executive leadership team some of the initiatives that I noticed some of the leading employers are doing. And sometimes it's about timing, but at least we're having the conversation. And I think my advice to anyone in a management role or any role is to at least have the conversation. What's the downside? There's none. So, yeah.
And you've gone ahead and asked my next question, which was, what are some
reading
little...
your mind because I've worked with you so long.
It's a bit like that, isn't it? But my next question was, what are some... gender equity can be overwhelming for some people. So what are some like actionable things? And you've just answered all of that. It's just having that lens, consciously having that lens on the decisions you make, asking for feedback, sparking conversations.
Yeah. Well, I just anyone who's listening to this, hopefully you get some listeners,
I'm
and if they're listening, hopefully they've listened to this point. Put it on your next agenda. Like everyone has meetings.
Love it.
Put gender equity on your next meeting agenda item, or if the CEO asks for any agenda items, just put it on there and just raise this. Should we have a discussion about what we are doing at the moment? And any ideas around what else we should be doing or considering.
Love it.
Just put it on the agenda.
There you go. Simple. Everyone can commit to that,
Yeah.
right? So before we wrap up, what's next for you at PERSOLKELLY? What's going on?
So firstly, as an organisation, PERSOLKELLY Australia, we're coming up to our 4-year anniversary of starting a new brand into the Australian marketplace. And so, we're focused on being a leader when it comes to professional and executive staffing, be it temporary contract or permanent staffing solutions for employers, from the largest employers through to the smallest businesses or startups. We support so many different organisations in so many different geographies, and our brand has now expanded to 13 countries across more than 50 offices in Asia Pacific. And our parent company, Persol, is the largest recruitment company in Japan and one of the top 2 players in Japan. And so our business is very progressive. We are looking for growth. We're looking to scale the business, but do it sustainably and do it in the right way. And so, yeah, we're just on an ongoing journey, Ash, of trying to get better every day. I do a new starter session with employees that have just joined us once a month at PERSOLKELLY, and I was talking to them the other day about the fact that, hey, we're only 4 years in. A lot of our competitors have got brands that have been in the market for 50 years plus, and we're not perfect. We've got lots of things to improve, and that's probably our mantra at the moment, is just to keep improving every day, and keep improving the culture and the environment. And really, over the last 12 months or so, we've brought our vision to life. Our vision is work and smile, and that's about making a positive impact on all those lives that we touch through work and through their careers and fulfillment. And it means different things to different people, but I think we've started to really bring that to life, and we want to take that to a new level in the next 12 months and beyond. And when we talk back to work and smile, gender equity is a big part of that, right? So, in fact, when I was putting my daughter to bed the other night, my youngest 6-year-old, she was talking about being happy before bed and happy when you wake up. And I told her for some reason about our vision at PERSOLKELLY being work and smile.
Of course you did.
And I tried to explain to her what that was about enjoying your work and getting fulfillment out of your work and smiling when you're at work. And she looked at me and she said, they've got it wrong. I said, oh, in what way? She said, it should be smile and work. So you should be smiling before you get to work. And and so
she's good, that girl.
She's sharp,
hey?
And so she gets that from her mum clearly. But But yeah, I think, we want to make positive impact, and yeah, we work really hard. We treat what we do really seriously as a company, but we don't treat ourselves too seriously, and that's kind of how I like to approach it. So hopefully more growth and more positive impact ahead. I feel challenged and supported as a leader in our business, and so whilst I feel challenged and supported, it gives me the energy to keep going as hard as I can to make a difference in a positive way.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
For being here today, for sharing all of that. Thank you for, the amazing leader that you are. Thank you for being on this gender equity journey with me, and, for using your position of influence, working for such a large and amazing company, and all the little tweaks which you're making is just so magic. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ash. You're doing an amazing job, you and the team. You're making such an impact. You can see it. Just keep it going.
Thank you.
No worries. Thank you.
That concludes another episode of Voices of Gender Equity, real and raw stories of impact. I hope this conversation has sparked a passion, revealed new insights, and inspired you to take action in the pursuit of gender equity. Remember, change begins with each one of us. So until next time, keep raising your voice, keep championing equity, and keep making a difference. This is Ash McGrath signing off from Voices of Gender Equity, real and raw stories of impact.